Hello and welcome to the Shiny Bees podcast, a podcast for those who like their knitting, comedy and yarn in equally large measures. I'm your host Jo Millmine and this is episode 134, Turn the Wheel.
I feel a need to laugh again with you, if that's alright.
Hello and welcome into episode 134. How are you? It's been a while, hasn't it? I hope you have all been well since last time I spoke to you. It has been, as I say, a little while. I have been super busy with a big new contract that I've been working on since like March. I kind of thought, yeah, I'll be busy for a few weeks and it'll be fine. And it's not, it's just been super busy for a long time. And it is still kind of busy, to be honest, like super busy, to be honest. But I just thought, I've not spoken to you for ages and I didn't want it to get to the end of a decade before I'd managed to catch up with you all again. So here I am, basically. I'm back and wishing a warm welcome to any returning listeners that's still hanging around. I'm still in your podcatcher or on your subscribe list. Thank you. And if you're new, this is the first time that you've listened to the podcast, welcome. I hope you will enjoy what you find here and get to know us all and have a good laugh while you're here with me. So as I say, it's been quite a while since last time I spoke to you unintentionally. There's been loads of stuff going on. There's been a whole heap of travelling happening. Been to lots of different places, visited some yarn shops along the way, which I will be sharing with you over the next few episodes as well. Been doing a little bit of knitting and a lot of working basically, and I'm looking forward to talking a bit about that, catching up with everyone, and I've had a few things through to review and look at and some stuff to share with you, so we can talk about all of that over the next few episodes. So without further ado, grab yourself a brew, get yourself a Galaxy maybe, something like that, nice biscuit, and we will crack on with the show. So, first episode in a while. So I thought I'd like reintroduce myself because it's been 7 and a bit years since I started this podcast. Can you believe it? And sometimes it's been super regular and other times we've had a little bit of a break, like just now. And I appreciate it can be sometimes difficult to follow where I am in the world and what I'm doing and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought I'll do a quick reintroduction for this episode, seeing as it's been a little while. So my name is Jo. I am a northerner, as you can probably hear. I am from the UK, but I have lived pretty much everywhere. And if you listened to the back episodes of this podcast, you'll know that it started in South Africa. Then it came back to the UK and travelled around a few locations in the UK, Lincolnshire, Scotland, in Fife in Scotland, then Murray in Scotland, then back to the northwest, my spiritual homeland, to Wigan. Then a little bit further north from there, and now I am in China, of all places. Yes, so it has been everywhere, and I can't see that stopping anytime soon, to be quite honest. It's just a bit of a thing. But in the show, I talk all about knitting and making stuff. Sometimes there is some random things in there, stuff that happens on my travels, funny stories, and my kind of listener promise is conversations you'd have with your mates in a pub. It's quite a bit of self-deprecating humour. I do call a spade, and I do enjoy telling a story. And that's where we are with it, really. I've won a few awards for the podcast and been in The Guardian and other such, exciting, serious-sounding newspapers. And in my day job, I've done quite a few different things, run businesses, done business coaching, and I now work in training management projects and on a contract basis. So I do that, and in my spare time I like to podcast and teach people how to podcast, and I'm currently writing a book on how to podcast as well. So podcasting is something that I think is awesome. It's very important to me. I think it's good that you can start a podcast from the middle of Africa and knowing nobody and meet people all over the world, which is what I've done as a result of my show. And it opens up so many different doors of things that you can do and people you can meet. So I absolutely adore podcasting. I think it's the best thing ever. And I have dearly, dearly missed it whilst I've been busy doing this big contract that I'm on, and I'm really pleased to be back. So I guess part of the problem with being really busy, and I'm sure it's something that everyone listening can sort of identify with, is sometimes when you're super busy with life, in whichever format it is taken, it's not that good for your knitting. It's not that good for your knitting mojo, depending on what's going on. I mean, there can be a point where you do a lot of knitting, you've got time, and it's the first thing you think of when you have a little bit of a minute to sit down, or maybe you're doing a really addictive project and you can't wait to get back and sit down and finish that and get on with it. And other times, things happen, life happens, and you don't really have that much time for the knit and making stuff. And sometimes the mojo goes on a little hiatus and you don't see much of it for a while. And both of those things are totally okay. And I guess part of the reason that I've not really been podcasting so much recently is that I've not really been doing that much knitting recently, because other stuff has just been in the way. It's been really busy, which is good. So I'm not complaining at all. Working on these different contracts and projects and stuff is really interesting work. But it has involved a lot of travelling around, and obviously I do take my knitting everywhere, but you don't always get the chance to sort of get that out when you're trying to pull a project together on a short time frame. You end up working a lot of hours, and like I said, I'm not complaining, that's awesome, but it does take its toll on your knitting a little bit. And I've found that it's been sort of, unless it is something where I really do not have to think, I don't want to do it. So when it comes to the knitting, unless it is potato chip, not needing to think knitting, I've just not wanted to do it. And I'm sure that happens with some of you guys sometimes. You just think, I just don't want to think. I just want to sit quietly. I just don't want to think. And that can roll over into your creativity. You do still need energy to be creative, I find. And sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't. And I have been in the don't camp for a little while, because the energy I would usually use to make things and be creative has been channeled into creativity in another way, whether it's, making new training products or pulling projects and the plans together. It's all sort of been directed in that sort of direction, I guess. So it's been quite different to be working that hard and not having the knitting to sort of soothe the mind, because it is very, it does kind of, the repetition sort of sorts your brain out. However, I probably about 6 or 8 weeks ago picked up a skein of self-striping yarn that I've had for a very long time. It was a gift, and it was dyed by Carlay from Nurturing Fibres, who I interviewed on a very early episode of the podcast. I can't remember what number it is, but it'll be in the first sort of 7 or 8. And I will link to it in the show notes. You'll find those at shinybees.com/134 for this episode. And it was her 40th birthday, and she dyed 40 skeins of this self-striping yarn. And every colour in the yarn was representative of a memory from a year from her life. And you couldn't buy the yarn, you had to sort of bid to be one of the people who gets the yarn, and then you have to give it away. And part of that was to write a letter, nominate someone, and then write a letter saying why you've nominated that person. And then Carlay would send all of the yarn out to those people with the letters. So it was a massive surprise as to who got the yarn. And I was super lucky. 2 people nominated me for a skein of this yarn, so I got some, and it was, super exciting. Beautiful yarn. But I've never knitted it because it had never really felt like I'd found the project, or I wanted to keep it, or I was doing that whole golden skein thing of not wanting to knit something in case I spoil it. I'm not really sure what I was doing. Hoarding, I guess, was what I was doing with that. But I found a project for it, and one of my friends here, she's just left, is a doctor. Her name's Lara. She's awesome. She is South African, and I decided to knit her a pair of socks out of this yarn because she's been a super good friend to me, and I thought, yeah, this is the nice way for the yarn to end, because I didn't feel like the yarn should have been mine and made into something for me. Even though it was gifted to me, I felt like it needed to be gifted on, but I hadn't found anyone worthy of the yarn yet. And then there she was. So I've knitted her this pair of socks with it so that she can she's about to move to Australia, and I thought, these socks will be super nice because heating's it's not really a thing like it is in the UK when you're in Australia, I don't think. And I thought she'll get cold feet and it'd be good for her to have these socks. And she's been super nice to me, and she looked after me when I had pneumonia and gave me a drip in my living room. And, we've had some good times. So the socks need to be for her. So I wound the yarn by hand. I haven't got a yarn winder here. I haven't got a Swift or anything. So I wound it by hand, cast it on, and have knitted these socks in this yarn. And it just flew. Like, when you find that project, when you've not been knitting for a while and you find that project, you're like, yeah, this is it. I'm addicted. Like, the colours changed every 2 or 3 rows. I'd switched back to using DPNs for this project as opposed to Magic Loop, which I don't mind Magic Loop, but it's just not as exciting as DPNs. I like the whole kaplunk feeling you have with a set of DPNs and kind of balancing the needles and moving them around my fingers. I know some people really hate that, but I find it super interesting. I like it. It keeps my attention up. So I was really enjoying that. And I've knitted these socks, and just that's brought my kind of knitting mojo back to life again. And the DPNs. I really enjoy DPNs. I know that people are going to be like, no, DPNs, that's terrible, Jo. But I do. I really like them. I've tried them. I've tried the little miniature circulars. I've tried Magic Loop. I just really like DPNs. I like the feeling of that I'm playing a game of kaplunk with my knitting. So yeah, I've worked on those, and that they have very much fitted into that idea of the potato chip knitting. You don't need to think about it. Just turn the wheel, make it happen. And it's been really kind of quite therapeutic. And then as a result of that, I've then gone back to other projects that I've not wanted to knit on because I didn't want to think, and had the kind of creative energy to be able to go back into those and knitting those again. So now that I'm back into the knitting and enjoying all of that, I've very much thought, well, the other big creative outlet for me is the podcast, and that needs to be a thing. It needs to be back. I can't just sit there and not talk and not tell everyone, because loads of stuff has happened, including some very, very funny things. And I know you guys enjoy my kind of light peril and funny stories, and all of the emails I've had over the break from people telling me about, working in a hospital and making malva pudding for the nurses from the recipe that Justice did in one of the very early South African Chronicle episodes. It's just like, you remember, it's not just a thing on the internet. It's not just you in your living room or your bedroom or your studio desk that I've now got in the main bedroom, especially for podcasting. It's all these other people that you just don't know about. Like, there's a lot of numbers in the stats, but you don't meet every person that listens, and you don't know every person that listens, but there are people there. And like I say, I've had these emails saying, I hope you're okay. Don't feel like you need to bring the podcast back, but I really miss the podcast. And I didn't feel pressured. I'm like, yeah, me too. I really miss it too. It needs to come back. So here it is. So I'm interested to hear from you. Have you had a little bit of the missing mojo? I know a few people have been talking about the missing knitting mojo and not really loving the knitting as much recently. I've also been off social media as well, so I haven't had the FOMO and looking at other people's projects to contend with and to use for inspiration either. But I'm interested to hear from you if you're happy to share. You can email me at info@shinybees.com, or DM me on one of the various socials, or I'm more likely to answer the email first and foremost. And let me know your experiences and what things you find snap you out of that creative funk, and how you have got back into knitting, if indeed you have, and how you protect your sort of creative energy so you can make stuff and not waste it all. Not waste it all, waste is the wrong words. Not use it all up in one area and not have any left for anywhere else. So I guess now I can tell you what I've got planned, because I want to be back podcasting regularly again for you and talking to you, because I do really enjoy it. So stuff I've got to talk about that will be coming up over the next few episodes are quite a few yarn shop reviews, different places that I've been to when I've been out travelling and what I think of them. Been to Australia recently and Hong Kong, Singapore, and I would like to share my thoughts on the yarn shops like I normally do when I go somewhere. There'll be some funny stories, there always are. There'll be some reviews of different products and books and stuff like that I've been sent over my podbreak. And yeah, I'll be talking about what I've been making. And some other random stuff. There will be some random stuff in there always is, right? Along with some interviews and chit-chat, hopefully, with some knitty peeps, because that would be super cool. Just need to align calendars. It's quite difficult being an East Asia time zone with everyone else. I mean, sometimes it's a completely different day. Most of the time it's a completely different day. So getting all that organised and put together would be awesome. Get some more interviews done for you as well, because I really enjoy the interviews. So that's what I've kind of got planned. There will be some surprises as always, but hopefully you will be back with me again next time. Until then, I hope you will have a great week. Happy crafting, and I will speak to you all again soon. Cheers! You've been listening to the Shiny Bees podcast. Show notes for this episode can be found over at shinybees.com/134. If you've enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate a review on iTunes or your favourite podcatcher. And if you want to contact me, you can do at info@shinybees.com.